So you think you can't paint? I talked to at least 10 people backstage. When I told them what I would be talking about, they said, I can't paint, I can't draw. And I'd like to share an article with you on that subject. This is based on scientific study and by TEDxGrandJunction. Drawing is often considered a gift you either have or don't have. In fact, say scientists, while some are born with natural talent, anyone can learn to draw well. The only catch is that, like all difficult skills, one probably needs 10,000 hours of practice to become really proficient. I always believed that in order to be an artist, you had to have been born with a paintbrush in your hand. Even though I took several professional and non-professional courses while I was raising my children, I believed I had no art talent. Even when my work was in several galleries, I couldn't call myself an artist. I'd like to share with you a couple of experiences that I've had that led me eventually into the art world where I could say that I am an artist. 23 years ago, I was sitting in a conference room in Las Vegas, and a car came through the wall, missed me by this far. I could put my elbow on the headlight. The firemen, when they came, told me he missed the fire hydrant that was installed inside the wall by this far. If he had severed the fire hydrant, I would have been killed instantly from the pressure of the water. On the way home, I did some pretty deep thinking. I could have died 3 hours before that, but I didn't. Outside of losing one of my children, what could happen today that I couldn't handle it? It's a gravy day. So 6 months later, I had a phone call from my doctor and he told me I had cancer. And it was serious. I had to have radical surgery. And on the days that my imagination really got carried away from me, I was able to apply the philosophy of the gravy days. Outside of losing one of my children, what could happen that I couldn't handle it today? It's a gravy day anyway. I could die in an automobile before I died of cancer. My sister came out to take care of me and encourage me, and she saw to it that I was enrolled in a pottery class for therapy. And I took those classes from a master artist every Saturday for the next 5 years. And I turned out, now that I look back, I turned out some pretty nice things. He encouraged me, he told me I had artistic talent, and I didn't believe it. 15 years ago, the worst happened. We had a terrible tragedy, and my son died. I didn't think that I would have life again. I went into a really bad depression for about 3 years. And despite all the love of my family, I couldn't focus on a new life. My husband retired, we moved to a small town in Colorado, and I met a sculptor. And I took classes from her. And under her tutelage, one of my first pieces sold and took a blue ribbon at a local art show. I thought the judge made a mistake. I continued to study under her for several years, and I had my share of blue ribbons in the local art shows. And we took a trip to North Carolina. And while we were out there, we went to several folk art museums, and I saw the freedom that these artists had, both in their heart and their imagination. And it opened up a new world for me. And just about that time, we walked into an art supply store, and I saw these absolutely beautiful colors of ink. Now, in my earlier studies that I had taken here and there, they were always in color, and I always felt at home with color. So when I saw these, I had to ask. And the owner told me that they were alcohol inks. They were dyes based in alcohol. She had just gotten them in, it was a fairly new medium, and she was going to experiment with them, and I took her class that Saturday. One of the things, the first thing she introduced me to was UPO paper. It's called YUPO, and it's actually biodegradable plastic. It's non-porous, and so it does not absorb the color. This is why it floats on the top, and this is why I got such brilliant colors. And I was at home with color. In her class, she introduced me to the inks and a blending solution, and this is how she started her painting. And I do this method for the backgrounds, and you can see as I do it for the backgrounds, it's almost the same for all of my paintings. So I'm just going to pour this blending solution, and this is kind of like a thinner. I'm going to pour this on here, and I'm going to get a little crazy with color in a minute. I'm going to soothe that blending solution over the top, and that little orange that popped up, that isn't going to hurt things. Not when you see what I'm going to do. I've never liked rules. And the fact that this was so new, and I didn't have to have any rules, it was the beginning of a new life for me. As I kept painting, little bit by little bit, I pulled out of my depression and gained more confidence that I did have some art talent, but I still couldn't admit it. I still couldn't say, oh, how about a little drama in that sky? Now, is there anybody that thinks they can't paint? Yeah, when I really believe that my 10,000 hours did not start with my first painting. By the way, my first painting sold me the blue ribbon, and I still didn't believe the judgment of the ribbon. So when I started painting with this, it was like my 10,000 hours just narrowed down into that afternoon, and I felt at home. One, because there were no rules, and two, because it was color. So I want you to see what happens when here it is. I still need 10,000 hours for my memory, believe me. So this is the colors here are going to change like a kaleidoscope for about 3 minutes. And I'm going to show you I can paint right over the top. If I don't like what happened here, I can come right in here and I can pour this on, I can put more color. Look at how it's flowing. And the alcohol will cause it to dry quickly. Let's put a little bit more color in there. And you can see I have a lot of fun. I have a lot of joy in my painting. And this is the way I started the backgrounds for my work. So I'm going to let it run this way. And now let's turn it. Let's see what happens this way. Oh, it's giving some interesting marks. And I can turn it back. I can turn it around. I can tap it this way. And I might do this several times. The picture of the wildflowers, I actually probably put 7 or 8 coats of ink just the same way because I wasn't happy with the first results. And the more coats that I put on there, the more texture I'm going to get with the subsequent coats. So I'm going to let this dry while I show you how I do some of my other techniques. I am self-taught with alcohol inks, and I have developed in the last 10 years all of the techniques that I use to create the pictures that I create. In order to get these pure reds, like on these poppies or the yellows on the flowers, I first have to preserve the white Nuco paper, because once I have poured my pour over there and I would use the red ink, it's going to turn a muddy color on top of that green. So if I don't plan ahead and preserve those colors, I won't be able to get the pure reds and yellows. And in order to do that, I use masking fluid. It's white, and I have dyed it pink for this purpose so that you could see what I'm doing. My next step would be to, okay, just a minute. Here it is. Not that one. Bear with me. not that one. I really was organized, I thought. And I don't seem to have that painting here. I don't know what happened, but we'll work without it. So at this point, I would paint right over the top of this, and the masking fluid acts as a shield, and it prevents the paper from getting the color on it. So once I have done this, I can pull this off, and I will have my white area underneath. So on this piece right here, what I've done is pull it all off. That's what it's going to look like. Once that's done, then I use what's called a fantastic, and it's just a little smudge stick and it's synthetic fibers. I soak that in the blending solution, cap it off, and I have poured ink in here. It's concentrated, and so that I can just pick that ink up, and then I start using just like a coloring crayon, and I start putting in all my stems and my leaves. I think my 10,000 hours honestly started with my first coloring book, and so many times we're not aware of that we have a dream. We think we cannot accomplish it, but we're really working toward it our whole lives. I asked for 4 volunteers a couple weeks ago to come to my studio and take a 3-hour class from me. The only requirements were that they had never painted, and they believed that they had no art talent. And so I want to brag a little bit, and I want to show you what they did at the end of that 3 hours, using just these techniques. I have a saying that I like to share with you that helped hold me from my believing that I had no art talent, or at least not saying it. And I only started this about 5 years ago to be able to say that I'm an artist. And it was, don't say anything about yourself that you don't want to be true. Before that, I would meet someone and they would say, oh, you're the artist. And I would say, no, I think you got me mixed up with somebody else. And I'm very pleased now I can say I am an artist. And by using this art, it has pulled me out of my depression. One day at a time, I was able to focus on something other than my son's death and start to live again. I love naming my pictures. I talk about those 10,000 hours, and all of my travels and my experiences, and even my desire to paint, I believe led me one step at a time into being able to paint like I do. I've always had poppies in my garden, and I love to watch them in the sun and the wind, and I feel that they're out there chatting and joking and just having a grand old time. So this one is called Poppy Talk. We lived on the Laguna Pueblo for a number of years, and when I went for walks, and this was 40 years ago, when I went for walks with my children, I could feel the ancient spirits walking with me and guarding me and guiding me. It was really a beautiful experience. And so this one is called The Ancients. These are the wildflowers on the Grand Mesa. And in order to do this picture, I followed the same steps I just demonstrated. I used masking fluid first to mask off where I wanted my pure yellows and my purples, and then I probably did 7 or 8 pours, and I could never create these marks with a brush. If they hadn't happened, I would have put another coat on after it dried and just tried it again. I don't have to remove the prior coat, but if I'm not careful with the colors I use, I can get mud. This is, I have a neighbor, every time I would go for my walks up on Cedaredge, she would be working in her garden. She obviously has her 10,000 hours in her garden. And so I could see her daisies kind of having a garden party. And so that's what the name of this is. It's called Garden Party. I spend a lot of time teaching now. I really love helping others and watching others change the attitude. I love to see the light bulb come on in their head that they can paint, but it's like any new skill. It's like we did in school, and we learned to count, we learned the alphabet. It's one little thing at a time. We don't jump in on our first art class and paint an masterpiece. We have to develop something from our own heart and let that go. So I have one more thing I'd like to ask you, and it's not, when are you going to start your 10,000 hours? It's, how far into your 10,000 hours are you?